guys, welcome back to the BracketLife brand YouTube channel. This week we have a special guest coming on with us, so a former $1 million race winner, one of the most successful guys to ever strap into a race car. Known for I guess the last month success that won a 25 grander at the Spring Fling and then 100K in Bradenton. So without further ado, Suga Shane Carr.
Thanks for having me on.
Awesome, buddy. Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate, you stepping out. I'm sure you got a million things going on, lots going on down there. And as we talked about, it's nice and warm where you are. So, always something to do or somewhere to go.
Yeah, never a dull moment around here. Actually, I think the wife's got it labeled. I don't know what the profanity rule is around here, but the shit show express.
Yeah, no, I hear you for sure. Absolutely, bud. And that's how it goes, right? But as long as it keeps moving, right?
Yeah, I pretty much would rather stay busy, have something going, kind of around the clock, so to say. You don't get distracted.
Yeah.
Try to keep a flow going, between work, everyday life, and racing in between. And
Yeah. No, I hear you for sure. Where are you guys planning on heading to next with racing, or when's the next outing?
We're contemplating on maybe trying to hit the Piedmont, the Michael Beard race next week, but I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to get out of work every other week, and it's been every other week since the Vegas Fling, like a month and a half ago. I'm pretty sure they understand, especially like after I've won the last couple races out, and then I actually made the split at Vegas in the big race. So they understand I'm not just going on vacation, or I'm not just going to hang out or whatever. I'm going to actually try to make a paycheck.
Yeah.
The last year and a half or so, you wouldn't know that because we were in a little slump in the drought there, just 4, 5, 6 rounds, and that was the end of the road.
Yeah, no, I hear you, but starting to come back around. You've had a fair amount of success in your trips to Vegas, if I'm correct, right? I believe, did you runner up before then?
I was runner up to Peeps Pennington in 19, and then of course with the last year's disaster, the Vegas million got moved to Bristol.
Yeah,
and of course that was during my stretch where I think what was there, 3 or 4 millions in that 6-week stretch last year?
Yeah.
Every round that I lost in the actual million races, the worst package beside me was 12th out. That was like second and third round. I could not pull in the lanes right, and I did whatever I needed to do for the wind light to not come on.
Yeah,
I just kept running into the wrong guys, and that's the way it goes. Sometimes you can get out of that rhythm and that motion. Sometimes you just cannot go to the lanes right.
Yeah.
And there's no rhyme or reason for it. It's just the way it is.
That's what I'm been watching a lot, right? Because we can't do much up here. So then, Motor Mania is a savior for us watching. Right. And seems that, the first 3 or 4 rounds, just throw a dart at the wall, right? And hope that it sticks. Everybody's just out there laying it down. And then if you're able to navigate through, then, round 4 on, then it's starting to get, kind of a tighter race, I guess, for actually, driving the cars and dialing and stuff like that.
Right. Typically, first 3 or 4 rounds are pretty cutthroat. If you can make it through 3rd or 4th round, most of the time you can get rolling, and by that time you've got a good handle on what the car is doing and weather and track conditions and whatnot. But that first 3 or 4 rounds is definitely the game changer, so to speak. And then for whatever reason, I don't know, I've been in some deal the last few races, 5th round or so. I don't know. I don't know if I'm getting tired. I'm approaching 50 now, so I don't know if I'm that out of shape or what's going on there. But I actually start doing the same thing. I see in some of the other results, the tree starts getting a little worse, and finish line driving starts getting a little sloppy, and I kind of got lucky a few of the rounds these last couple of races that I won, which that's part of it. I earned the first 4 or 5 rounds in each of those, like out at Bradenton, and I think I don't remember all the numbers exactly, but I was laying down like good laps and was having to have those good laps. And then like 5th round, it started easing up just a little bit. They weren't so cutthroat.
Yeah. So that's kind of, leads into what I wanted to talk to you a bit about. Like, so how do you approach those races? Is that it? Like, you wind up and just try and nail one, all 4, rounds right off the hit and try and get through? Or, how do you look at it when you roll in, say, the 100K, 500K, or the million races,
Well, for me, I pretty much try to just focus on some of the bigger races. I guess I've become probably spoiled, over the last 5 to 10 years. You go to racing you can go race for 20, 50,000 a couple times a month if you're willing to travel a little bit. So I try to put my focus and attention on all those. But as far as like approaching, I try to approach each round with the same mentality. I want to be mid, high, double O, and I'm okay with a low team as long as I can find like low dead on the dial in. That's not a bad lap. Somebody's got to get inside 15 to 20 package, which is doable, but they have to earn it at least. And
yeah, for sure.
One of my things is, you're just not going to go out there and beat 8, 9, 10 guys and lay down a lap all 8, 9, or 10 rounds. Now, these last 2 races I won, I don't remember if I may have had one red light there in the 100, but I did get lucky, and I had the way the ladder shook down, and then the way it fell, I had to buy it no, I didn't have to buy it. I ended up with 2 buy runs. I don't remember how it all shook down, but I ended up with 2 buy runs. So those were my kind of lucky rounds. Other than that, I've pretty much earned every win light. Although I got lucky in the final, I was 30. The guy he ended up going under for me. He had me 100.5 on the tree, and then there was one more round, I think, that was, could have gone the wrong way. And then the same thing at Goliath last week. I believe I had 1 red light, no buy runs. Actually, in the final, I thought I was 20. Jeff was 14, I believe. Jeff Sarah. I actually thought I was way worse than that. And in the way the race shook down, I thought, well, evidently I wasn't as bad as what I thought, and ended up turning on the win light. And the Sarah brothers, they're 2 guys that are very hard to race. They haven't been around as long as like Troy and Gary, but they definitely have earned a lot of respect as far as turning on win lights and being very hard to get around each time you run them. And they actually they actually got the best of me the last couple years until here recently. They'd actually gotten on my nerves. They beat me like 10 times in a row.
I hear you, but I ran Jeff in Michigan a few years ago, and same thing. I actually had him 2 rounds right in a row, and did the exact same thing. Right, just left me hung out to dry out there, and you come across the finish line nearly cross-eyed trying to figure out what went on, and all you know is your win light's not on. That's all that really matters.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw Danger Dylan walking around back there. How's the junior career going?
It's getting a lot better. We don't have him an 890 motor yet, but
yeah,
it's in the works, trying to get it going. That big joke on Facebook, the cuss word count.
Yeah.
That was most of that was all self-inflicted, just absolutely not knowing what the heck I was doing with that thing.
Yeah.
But I kind of got a decent handle on that deal as far as the setup we have now. And actually, the car is pretty decent. As a lot of people would say that like an 1190 car, oh, good luck getting that thing to run within 5, 6, 7, 800s. And, as long as the wind doesn't kick up, we dial him pretty decent most of the time. And, he's only 10 years old now, and he goes through spurts like most of us do. One day he go okay on the tree, and the next time you go out, you're like, what dude, what are you doing? What are you looking at? So I gotta watch and try not to be too hard on him, because I get a little too competitive, and he's got to have fun to begin with.
Yeah, no, I hear you, right? And then hard to really pick I guess a better teacher, or at least one of the best ones that you could have for learning how to do it. So that's pretty cool. I like getting seeing all the updates, and we always enjoy the cuss word count, right? Everybody does. Everybody loves it. So we'll whip back a little bit, right, to talk about Galat when you had Jeff in the final. So then, I know Jeff, you know him, I know you. How do you pick what you're going to do, right? How do you decide how you're going to play that out, how much you're going to hold or whatever, especially against somebody like Jeff who, Lord knows what's going on in the other lane, so how does that impact your planning for that kind of round?
When Jeff and Sean went through that deal of wearing me out over the last couple of years, I think I had found that I wasn't holding enough when I was racing them. So I don't know, the race just looked wrong going down the racetrack, and it was because they were holding so much. I never really could determine how much they were holding. Definitely way more than I was holding at the time. Like last week, I had Scotty Albrecht in the Koretsky's S10 at 4. Well, I had some pretty good 330 incrementals, and I kind of knew what I could go. So I was just going to take the door car equation out of it and put the number on it, run it wide open. And I did the same thing at the 100 out here. But I decided at some point last year that I wanted to, that I was going to have to try the Sarah guys a little different. I start holding more. So I went right back around for the final and dialed right back up to what I'd been going. Of course, the air's getting a little bit cooler and the track's getting a little bit better. The sun's come off of it. Probably holding, I don't know, like 4, maybe 5 hundredths or so. And you have to have a car set up to where you can learn to kill the ET with the brake pedal. And you have to develop a feel for that to learn kind of what you're killing and what you're not killing. And it becomes if you kill some early, then they start ripping into you, and you're like, well, I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't think I've killed too much. And it's hard to explain. I do a lot better holding than I do dialing honest, unless I know exactly what the car can go. And that fights you and gets you both ways too, because there comes a round here and there that's important, and you don't know exactly what you can go, and you miss it by 100th and end up going under on a slower car. And it's a double-edged sword. You just got to pick whichever way fits you, and that's how you got to go about trying to turn on the wind light.
Yeah. So then what would you say is like the maximum that you would be comfortable holding in an 8th mile drag race, like let's say in a drag strip?
I'm probably stuck at about that 5 number. Yeah. And with, as long as it's got the brakes are set up properly, and, you can actually like feel the pedal where it's got some feel to it, instead of just like pushing on the pavement or the concrete or whatever, where it's just, you can't feel that. But I've gotten a pretty good spot and feel on being able to know when I've killed 4 or 5 hundredths, and then at that point I can say, well, I'm I feel like I'm above the dial, so I'm going to cross if I can in front.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been in some cars over the years that the brake pedal is, super firm, and I can't feel what I'm killing. And I go down there and go 2 or 3 over, or don't really kill anything and go 2 or 3 under and look like an idiot.
Yeah. No, I hear you. It's tough. I guess I never really thought about how to feel the brake pedal, right? I've only, drove my car, drove a handful of other cars, but not enough to really know what it's like. So I don't use the brake pedal to kill very much. Usually I just try and walk as much as I can,
Right.
But, I guess just working on developing or paying attention to know what I'm looking for when trying to use the brake pedal.
Well, I started using the brake pedal. It's probably been 10 years or more now, when the dragsters started getting faster. Like 10 years ago, a 450, 460 car was kind of fast. Well, now a 460 car is kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
I've well, I don't know about several, but a handful of different 430, 440 cars, and I've gotten pretty comfortable in that ET range. And I just feel better being in a faster car like that. Plus, you've got the race out in front of you, and the True Start deal, that doesn't affect anything on that, because it's whoever's the worst race. Which I'm kind of torn on that, because I still got a little bit of the old school racer in me.
Yeah.
To a degree, the guy leaves first and goes red, then he's out. But then on the other hand, well, it's not really fair just because I'm in a faster car. Why should he be penalized because he's having to leave first because he's in a slower car, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've been on both sides of that too, and just it's part of it. It's the way the chips fall sometimes.
Yeah. No, I hear you. That was the one lad we were racing here in a final, and door car versus dragster. Door car leaves and the red light's on. Dragster just sits there, right? He just parks it, doesn't move out. Well, he flinched on it ridiculous hard, right? And knew he was going red, and then saw that the door car was gone. So then just left it sitting in the beam. So then, not that it mattered because it wasn't the True Start, but at least True Start would have given you, the illusion that the door car was green. So, but
Right.
no, I hear you, double-edged sword for sure. Just depends on what side you're on.
Right.
One
One other thing, back to this holding deal. If I showed you the time slip from the kick booty car, like round 4, 5, and 6, you would look at me and say, "Are you stupid? Why wouldn't you just put the number on it?"
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what round it was, but it went 288 with a 2, 3 rounds in a row to the 330.
Nice.
So I'm just more comfortable. I've never been in a car that has nitrous, so I've never really had that weapon. I basically use the holding numbers as a weapon to change the race, so my hand isn't shown. Like,
yeah,
I kind of look at it as playing poker. I don't know if you play poker, but
yeah,
you can't show your hand all the time, because you're too predictable then. And everybody knows I'm holding, but I'm going to get rid of it. It's not like I'm going to run wide open and go 5 under for you or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, and then, you're holding 2, 1, or you're holding 5, right? Like, and then however you get rid of it, right time of, if you get rid of some early, save it all for later, or whatever, like you say, it gives you more options, at least to the finish line, instead of coming up 20, 25, and then just watching the lad beside you just pull away and, wave at you as he, crosses in front of you just, by a hair, and then you look silly driving back to the motorhome.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So I guess the next one is more of, we touched a little bit on about being tight on the tree and how you set up, mid dead or not dead on, holy, losing my mind here. Mid 00, say, so like, then how do you, especially in the big races, stay focused on that to stay consistent, right? Because the big swing between early in the morning, late at night, and then just having an 8, 10, 12 hour day behind the wheel to stay consistent all the way through the day. And then what kind of practice do you do, if any? Everybody is heavy on the practice tree. I don't know how much you use it or don't, or what you do to kind of stay sharp.
Honestly, I actually don't use a practice tree a whole lot. I mean, once in a while I'll break it out, but it's not a daily or weekly routine by any means. But I don't know. For whatever reason, the last probably 5-6 years, the tree has become much easier for me to hit and react to and stay on throughout the day and half the night.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's, I give up drinking 2 years ago. I haven't had a drop since. I cut way back, and I started seeing the improvements on the tree, and finally a couple years ago, I just said, you know what, I'm just going to axe the drinking altogether and just not do it. Now, don't get me wrong, I had done my share of drinking some years before that, and a lot of it was mornings that I should have never been in a race car.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Never really got into the alcohol and drinking while I was racing or anything like that. But as far as extracurricular activities from the night before,
that's right,
carrying over on into the morning and
yeah,
shouldn't have been racing. Yeah, I'm guilty of that for sure. But
yeah,
and the wife got me on. It's called Thrive. Lavelle. It's a vitamins, a shake, and a patch you wear.
Okay.
You get in your 30s and 40s, your body's not the same anymore. When you're 20-something, you just go and go and go and go all the time. You start getting on up in the age, and you got to start replenishing the old body with some of that stuff that it doesn't get anymore.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear you. I appreciate the advice. I'm 25 now, so then good to know what I need to be prepared for, right?
Yeah, maybe everybody's different, but as far as preparing every day, or I really try not to put a lot of thought or think and try to hit the tree or anything. Somehow you have to develop a natural ability to do it. When the helmet goes on, then it's go time for a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
When you turn off the track and take the helmet off, collect your thoughts on what all you just did on that run and put it up in the old memory bank and go back to the trailer, and you got to let it all go. I mean, you certainly can't stay, amped up and jacked up and just on edge for, you wake up at 8-9 or get outside 8-9 o'clock in the morning for a big race, and dude, that final is not for a minimum of 12 hours or later.
Yeah.
You can't stay jacked up all day. That won't work.
Mm-hmm.
Not naturally anyway. I mean, I guess there's ways you could do it, but
yeah, there's always ways around everything, right? But no, that's the biggest struggle, I guess, for especially us up here. Our biggest race for a normal, say, weekend, say 70, maybe 80 Super Pro cars. So then, we have a few hours, and that's a good sized event. But then you roll down, especially when we're doing the SFG stuff, and you're 500, 600, 700 cars hanging out, then, we don't know what to do ourselves for the first 4 rounds, right? And then, round 4, you're nearly at what a normal day starting would be.
Right. Yep.
So then that's I say it's kind of the hardest part that I find, at least, is hanging out and just relaxing between rounds, right?
Yeah.
It's nice in the motorhome, but when you hear different stuff, when Gage won the 500 or 525, and they went back, go back to the hotel room and hang out for however long and whatever. But so that's, I guess, the biggest challenge that I see, or one of them, for the big stuff.
Yeah. You definitely got to do something to get away and be able to let go for a few hours. One big thing, like the SFG hundreds at Rockingham a few years back, I won the 100 on Friday, which the final was ran at like 2:30 in the morning, I think. Well, a racing start for the next day was at like 9 o'clock. I got fortunate and got by with both entries. Well, I was done at like 1 o'clock. Well, the buyback round was, going to be like 3 hours. Dude, we loaded up and went right back to the hotel and took like an hour nap.
Nice.
We got back to the track and they were like almost done with door car. So it was like the perfect scenario to get the heck away and roll back in and go back to work, so to speak.
That's right. That's right. Especially with Motor Mania on, right? Always what's going on and, who's going up. So, hard to be late for it, or, there's a better way to stay on track with what's happening when you're not there.
Right. Yeah. That's definitely a huge plus to have that tool. One of my fears that I used to run a lot of NHRA stuff back late 90s. I started and ran pretty heavy up through 2010 or so. You're not going to run for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, but you're scared to death to leave the track because if they happen to call you, you're screwed. You're not going to make it back. There's no way.
Yeah.
So you sit around the track and you're bored and you're talking and goofing off, but it's nice to be able to watch Motor Mania and keep up with like exactly what's going on pretty much.
Yeah, no, I hear you for sure. So you mentioned kind of getting back to the track and going back to work. So you approach this, is it a little bit like a business or is it just, kind of fun stuff? I know, I listened to, Scotty Richardson's interview with Luke on the podcast, and he had talked about when he looks at a race, he's looking at it from a business perspective. Does this make sense for me to go try and make some money? Is that an approach that you use to picking where you go? I guess we touched on it a bit earlier, but kind of focus more on the business aspect of your program.
Yeah, I actually started out back in 89 was the first year I started racing with my dad. I was 16. And I was pretty fortunate to, I won pretty quick. And, he had a family business and it was successful for us and for him. That's how he paid our bills. That's how we went racing. I was winning pretty often locally, and I was making almost as much money on the weekend racing as I was working for him during the week at the shop.
Yeah.
So, of course, my wheels start spinning. And how the heck would I want to go punch a clock every week with him when I could go out on the weekend 3 days and kind of have a chance of making the same money? Of course, it didn't always work out like that.
Yeah.
And then I got pretty fortunate. I won my first 10 grander, I believe, was at the 10 Tuck in Bowling Green in 91. I think it was 91. It could have been 90. I can't remember that far back.
Yeah.
So, any money that I've really ever made came from turning on wind lights. For the most part, I always had a job here and there throughout the years, but all I've ever done really with a job is basically, live and pay bills.
Yeah.
Any significant amount of money I ever made was pretty much come from the racetrack. So, and then I started somewhat racing for a living. And end of 94, I had become pretty good friends with Edmund and Scotty both. And that was during the Slick 50 days. Well, somehow, I guess Edmund needed a car in IHRA or I don't know. Anyway, we struck up a deal and I ended up pretty much running just full-time IHRA and bracket racing in 95. And from there on, I somewhat raced for a living to a certain degree for quite a while. Of course, went through some ups and downs with life issues and whatnot. And I don't really want to get into too much of that, but
no,
made it through a lot of it. And there was times I didn't know if I was going to make it through some of it.
Yeah.
But the last 5 or 6 years, well, probably the last 10 years, I definitely kind of got hooked on the big money bracket racing stuff. Of course, there was only 1 million 10 years ago. And then I don't remember when it all shook down, but a little more often there was a 50 or 100, hell, almost once a month or every other month, and try to focus on those and go cash in.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So like is for you when you look at kind of a little off topic with it, but something that I've always found interesting. Now with last year having the 4 millions in one season, is like the original million, is that still like to you the most prestigious event to win, even though it necessarily doesn't pay out as much, or is that something you think about or not?
Well, I mean, I'd like to win them all, but that's,
Yeah.
that's in the back of my mind. I know that's probably not going to happen. I like to think it would, but
Yeah.
the OG million, they call it. It's
Yeah.
been around since 96, I believe, was the first year. Uh, it's being that I won that one, I do favor that one a little bit, and I do like that race. I wish it would actually pay $1 million, but I get it, the structure and the entry, and that one's that's pretty consistent for 25 years now. I think maybe this is 26 coming up.
Yeah, should be 25 because then I was born in 95, right? So I'll be 26 and the million will be 25 right behind me, right? So, yeah.
But I mean, and they're all prestigious, and then like the actual 1.1 in Michigan, I don't know who would have ever thought we would actually really truly legit race for $1 million, not to mention 1.1, and then there was another guaranteed $1 million a few months later in October at Memphis with the Cummings guys.
Yeah. Yeah. And you had some success at the 1.1, right? I believe you were pretty deep into it in the million race, I believe.
Yeah, actually that was, I started driving the tow truck here they're based out of Sarasota, but coming up on 2 years now. And well, with last year, everything was so up in the air.
Yeah.
I think we were kind of short-handed at that time, and I elected to just go race just the million. I wasn't going to go for all the other days. So we flew in late Thursday night, I think it was. I got us kicked out of the hotel because the people above us were being really noisy, and I ended up going up there in my shorts and banging on the door. Almost had a knockdown drag out, and of course I was dead tired and wanting to go to sleep. It's 1 a.m. We finally got bedded down at about 3 a.m. in another hotel. The new entry time run was at like 8:30, 9 o'clock. So here I am, I've flown to Michigan from Florida, and 3 a.m. Here I am. I need to go make a time run for this $1 million race in a few hours. And it ended up working out. That Friday was a really long day. It was only the one round and a buyback, and I was fortunate enough to get both cars by. I drove the kick booty car and Richard Dukes' Chevy 2. But yeah, Saturday, I got some decent rest Friday night and come out Saturday feeling pretty decent and got rolling pretty good and had both in at 39, I believe. And I just had one of those kind of weird let goes in the Chevy 2. I wasn't sure what I was. And anyway, God, I can never remember the guy's name from up north somewhere. He goes a lot of rounds. But anyway, he beat me. And then I was fortunate enough to make it down to 6 in the kick booty car, and lost to Hunter, I believe. I was 23, I think, and he was, 16 or 17, and I didn't like the way the race looked, so I bailed, and he wasn't under, and that was that.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to finish that deal, but hey, I wasn't mad at losing at 6 cars and getting a pretty good piece of the pie.
Yeah, no doubt in my mind. We were watching it, right, and then had it on at the track up here. Obviously, we couldn't have made it down. Otherwise, I would have been on my way. But that's how it goes. So, kind of getting into that stuff about driving some different cars and whatnot. How did that? I guess you kind of talked about driving for Edmund a bit, but how does that still go on, or how do you kind of initiate that, or what goes on to be driving everybody else's stuff? Obviously, you got to be kind of have a bit of a reputation, not just walk in. hey man, let me drive this car for you, and I'm gonna get you real deep in this million. Where are you gonna get paid, right? So you got to kind of have a little bit of credit to your name first. But how does that go for you?
Uh, Actually, the wife has taken over that department. She likes to claim that she's my PR person for getting the rides and whatnot. Actually, she claims she's my pimp now.
Well, somebody's got to do it, right? It's a dirty job, but got to be done.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, I guess actually, there was a few times my local home track where I grew up in Alabama was Huntsville. There was a couple guys there that, we always had just the one car with my dad, and there was a couple guys there. They they think you might drive my car sometime. Yeah, sure, why not? Of course, back then, I wasn't but 18, 19 when they're asking this, and I'll wheel it. I don't care. And that 10 grander I won at the 10 tuck, my very first one. My buddy Ricky Robertson from Tuscumbia, Alabama, he was like the man to beat in our area. Back in the 80s, they would race Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday. And I'm pretty sure I heard tales of him. He would win all 4 days at, certain times. Well, he'd had a Camaro that he'd bought from Bones, Todd Ewing's dad. And it was, it was pretty deadly. For the early 90s, that was a pretty big thing. Something like that deadly. Bracket racing was like a big deal. Well, he had been struggling on the tree a little bit, and Sunday he said, "Hey, I happened to get busted first round. I'm gonna put you in this thing over here." Well, sure enough, he got beat. I hopped in it with no time run. 9 rounds later, I win the 10 grander, and I've never sat in it before.
Yeah.
So, I've been pretty fortunate to be able to hop in somebody's car like that, and just everything clicked, and you end up winning, and then next thing you know, a lot of people are talking about it, and then when you go out and do it again, well, clearly it wasn't a fluke or an accident.
Yeah.
And, I've had pretty good success over the years driving for a lot of different people, actually. And, of course, there's been a couple that they just don't pan out. They just don't work out too good. And
yeah,
it's just no different than any other business. But as far as, I would like to own my own stuff, but for the cost of what it takes to get started, the initial investment, it's just something I don't want to tackle. And I've been pretty fortunate to get hooked up with some of the guys that have top-notch equipment. And I'm sure I abuse some things, but I try not to abuse their equipment any more than anyone else, and I try to take care of it, keep it clean. I'll maintain it, work on whatever needs to be done to it. Hey, if you got the parts and you want to do it, let's do it. So yeah. I'm definitely not afraid to sling wrenches or anything like that. As far as working on swap motor training, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, at this point you really can't be afraid of it, right? With everything that's gone on, and you've been doing it for long enough, right? It's got to get easier as it goes, right? You've done it, I'd imagine, more times than you'd care to count. And then for the cost of everything, I'm sure that, the junior probably costs enough money that, you don't need to take up with everything else going on.
Right. Yeah, but actually Dylan got quite a bit of sponsorship help with his junior. The McCartys, they got him a motor, and Timmy Miller, they partnered up and got him a motor. And then he got some sponsorship help through, actually, he's probably got 10 to 12 pretty good sponsors that
nice
come on board, and that that made that a lot easier. And then his poor old crew chief finally somewhat got a handle on that thing, and
yeah,
we do good with it now. I actually enjoy it now that I've kind of calmed myself down and got my head out of my ass, so to speak, as far as trying to operate it and run it. Still have our moments, but
absolutely. And it doesn't go away until he turns 16, right? all the headaches, right? They all stay until he turns 16. Then he's in something big, and that's another headache. But that's how it goes, right?
Right.
For kind of the business stuff of it, something that I know I'm interested in, been involved in it a little bit in my own racing career. But when you guys get down and deep in these big races, such as like the 1.1 or even the 100 or the 25, how do you guys look at cutting the money up? Like what's your way to do it? We talked a little bit before we started recording about the year of the million. You and I were both in with 14 left, and Underwood decided not to cut it. And, it's good for him, right? Because that worked out big time, obviously. But so you look at that, if in your shoes when approaching those rounds in the big races.
Well, the one you and I were involved in, I was a little bit aggravated and a little bit red about that, we'll say, because the way that shook down was he approached it as it was a 2-for-1 win light for him at 14 cars because he was carrying the buy. And that, oh Lord have mercy, I can't believe I just said the buy. I have an ongoing deal with the buy run that shook down at a race earlier this year about a buy run, but I'm not a fan of the carrying buy run. I absolutely despise that rule.
Yeah.
Your buy run can go out and win the round if he's sitting on it and have the worst reaction time of the round and still have the buy. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't like that deal there. But anyway, that's how that race shook down. And really what aggravated me with that race was I was pretty sure I was perfect at 27 or 28. So, I come rolling around thinking that I'm probably on the buy. I'm knowing there's 14 cars left. So, but I'm probably not going to gamble on lighting that win light so I can get that buy at 7. I'll go ahead and let's cut this money back a little bit and everybody get a little piece of the pie and, knock a big dent in everyone's entries for the weekend and their trip and maybe make a little money. And then the next few rounds, everybody's like making good money. But normally when you get to that split round, which is typically 9 to 16 cars remaining, which that was, no, I'm thinking about Gage's million. There were 16, or Gage's 525. There were 16 cars left. But when they started chopping at 16, they like it. By the time when you go to start chopping it up and give that money back, there's such a big amount have to come right off the top for that first split. You end up when you win, you're like, holy smoke, this thing paid 525 and I only won, I don't know what he won, but we'll say 150 or 200. I didn't even win 50% of the purse.
Yeah.
Like some of the, in my opinion today, some of the races are a little too top heavy, but the other factor to that is today is the entry is cheap enough at most of them to where, the round money, you still can go 4 or 5 rounds and cover a lot of the entry back. But, the biggest thing that when you get to that typical split round, if you can cover most of your weekend, that's kind of the goal I'd like to shoot for.
Yeah.
And if it pays 100,000 to win, you got to at least have the winner win at least 40 or 50. And I think the 1.1 last year ended up being, I think they ended up getting right at 400 apiece. I think, I don't remember for sure.
I think I heard somewhere about that. It was right around that. They were, I think, right about 400 each. I think they said it was like there was well over 700 left with the two of them sitting there.
Yep. I think that's right. Yep.
So, and that's a wild payday for sure for those two guys, but that's, everybody deep, as you would very well know from being there. I'm sure got covered, pretty well, even with with only taking so much off the top. But I guess still taking 400 off the top and then not cutting the thing in half is pretty wild.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. Like, I couldn't imagine letting go for that type of money when you're that deep in. It was a whirlwind for me when I was there at the million and, had some success. I was doubled with 28 left and then had lost my first one and then, ended up losing the next one, the next round to Scotty. And, he had kind of from what I would think is similar thoughts to you about the no split deal, just based on the conversation him and I had in the staging lanes right after. But, what do you do? Right. That's how it goes. And then, but he got her back later on, right, in Bristol, so, which is cool. It's funny with all this different stuff. And we talked earlier about being lucky and guys coming up and, just letting her rip, coming up, triple zero or whatever, and then low dead on, and then being ridiculous out there in the first few rounds. But all the, they always say, right, the cream always rises to the top, and the best guys always still, over time, will eventually still be there with those good laps, without them, and then earning the lucky rounds and whatnot. So that's really cool. It's neat to get this opportunity to talk to you with somebody who's experienced it and being deep. And then, there's so many questions and so many things that I want to learn as a racer myself. And then, the advantage that I have being able to do things like this and talk to you and then, guys of your kind of stature after, it's really cool because then I get so much more out of it. So I appreciate that. So the next one I got for you is, how does someone like myself kind of end up doing stuff like what you're doing, right? Whether that's, driving for other people and then being successful, or just, showing up at a big money race once every 2 weeks and then one of the 3 days being, winning, being in the final, being at a split. How does somebody go from where I am to kind of that, if that makes sense to you?
There's a lot that has to come together. Like I said earlier, I've, had some pretty decent partnerships and relationships with different ones driving for over the years. I don't really know. I don't know if I can explain how you really go about doing that. First you got to go out and give it 100% for sure. You got to be willing to learn, and you have to pay attention all the time, and just be willing to go at will and do whatever it takes to get it done. The mindset is one of the biggest things, I guess. Somehow you have to stay positive. A negative energy, and I've seen it over the years. It can be back there and you not even know it in the back of your mind. And it can be somebody around you or somebody you talk to and you don't even really know it. And I don't know it. Just over time, you gotta learn how to weed stuff like that out. Stay positive and at least hope for the best and think for the best.
Yeah.
Definitely got to put yourself out there for sure.
Yeah, I guess you can't really win it if you're not there, right?
My dad, he was very clear to me my dad's not here anymore, but a long time ago, he said, you'll have to go get that check. They will not mail it to you.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right about that one. No, for sure. Another, quick one, way off topic, I guess, but it's just something I wanted to know. So what's your favorite car to drive? Like, I know you drove like Richard Duke's Chevy too. That thing looks wild. It was, Jeff drove it, obviously, won the million with it. And, that's a sweet looking piece. Is that one, or like, what was your favorite car to drive over the years?
Richard's car definitely is one of the top few. I'm actually almost nervous to race it because I'm afraid I'm going to scratch it or something.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to get it dirty. It's too clean to race. But he's good as gold. I love Richard to death. He can do anything for you. He's always, if you want to go race, hey, where you want to go, let me know.
Yeah.
As far as over the years, one of probably the most fun and enjoyable car, I don't know if I could narrow it down to one, but definitely one of the top runners would be the Cobalt I drove to the win at Indy and Superstock back in 2011, the modified car. I had ran a little bit of Superstock before that, but just in like a GT class, I believe it was. But that modified deal, that's something that I wish everyone could drive at least one time, because that's as close to what real racing from back in the day as any of us will ever get from. And those guys, they had to earn all of that stuff to be able to do that. Those high wind and small blocks, and it's just unbelievable how that thing sounds going down the track. But I definitely enjoyed driving that car for sure. It was a lot of fun, and it was, most of the time it was good enough. You would think a car going 840s, 850s in the quarter at 2,900 pounds like that, you really wouldn't think it would probably be too consistent. Once I stopped beating myself from holding 5 or 6, that one I had to put the number on it, just because of the way most of the races played out. It was good enough. It bailed me out of so many races, but I definitely enjoyed that one.
Nice.
And then as far as the dragster goes, probably would have to favor Thompson's blower car from Vegas.
Yeah.
Haven't driven a lot of blower cars over, actually, maybe the only one I've driven. I'd have to really think about it. I know I drove another one that had a baby blower on it probably 10 years ago at Montgomery one Saturday night, I think it was. But Thompson's blower car it's definitely a cool ride. And that, people say that thing is just like loud, obnoxious, and intimidating. It's loud, and it definitely is fun to drive. I like driving it for sure.
Yeah, that's actually my father-in-law. He's got a similar kind of setup. Same thing, big blower. He's got the zoomies on it now, and that's exactly it, right? It's just loud and obnoxious and ridiculous, but it sure is cool, right?
Right.
So, and he's a blast driving that. I drove it once, and the thing's just a wild ride, right? It's ridiculous hard. Like, it's not like, it's probably 15, 20 quicker than my car, but like the way it hits you on the line, and then the feeling of it going down is unreal. So that's really cool. So I guess that, that's pretty much it. I don't want to take up too much, more of your time. This has been fun. I appreciate you taking the time out to come talk with me for a bit and share this all with everybody. So that's pretty much that. I appreciate it. Thanks, bud. And this we post it all up, and other than that, try not to have too much fun down in the heat. Hopefully, it's not, there's not too much more snow coming my way, and maybe I'll see you at the track sometime.
Yeah, hopefully you guys get the bands lifted up there, and you can start attending some of these races. I know some of you guys are missed up that way.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's a good crew, especially the Montreal boys, right? They all love a good time down there.
You talking about the Angers boys, or?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They're a trip. I like them guys. They're pretty cool. That's
right. Yeah, I hang out with Fred and Frank quite a lot when we get to the racetrack here. So, they have fun.
Right.
Yeah. But all right, bud. Well, tell Dylan and Carrie I said hello, and thanks for lending you to me for however long this was.
All right, man. Thank you for having me, and my pleasure.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you.
All right. Thanks, man.